Hello. We're back for another episode of Goalie Interference with the one and only from the Daily Face-Off, everyone's favorite goalie, Mike McKenna. How you doing today?
I'm my mom's favorite goalie and probably my wife's favorite goalie, maybe a couple others here and there. In all honesty, Ken, it's kind of been a tough week. We put our dog down 2 days ago, said goodbye to the pup. We had him for almost 14 years. So
yeah, that's not good.
He was a pretty amazing animal. But you know what? I'm glad that I was here for it. I kind of look at this big picture. If I'd been in Vegas or away or anything, it would have really been tough. So
yeah, the tornadoes, right?
Well, man, it's all kinds of stuff going on around here. Yeah, my buddy's house got hit by a tornado last week, and just it's been pretty wild, honestly, and a lot of kind of a heavy week, I guess. But some of the enjoyment though has been watching the Golden Knights play because they've been massively entertaining in the past
and
week.
Hopefully they get to keep playing because we're going to stay on the heavy topic to start the show because I think it's really the only one that matters at the moment is, are they going to keep playing and what's going to happen moving forward? You have today the NHL sending out updated protocols, and I don't really fully understand everything that means and what they're actually going to do because it's not horribly clear. It's, source comes from source, whatever. Mm-hmm. From the information that we seem to have, it seems to be, as opposed to testing them once every 3 days, they're now testing them every day that they're in the building, off days excluded, so they don't have to come in off days. And then they're not allowed to do things like eating dinner inside on the road. I guess outside dining on the road is fine. They're in New York. I don't know how much outside dining there's going to be there.
Not a whole lot.
Imagine most places there's not going to be a lot. So maybe trips to Vegas will be good for teams. I don't know.
Ken, you ever been to Winnipeg in January?
I have not, and I probably will never. I went to Winnipeg in May, and I was there for about 14 hours, and it was great.
I actually like Winnipeg. I don't like the cold of Winnipeg. It's freezing there.
Yeah, it's cold here, actually. You'd be surprised.
We had 70 degrees in St. Louis today, but it's probably going to cause another round of thunderstorms this evening. So I tell you what, my inflatables, my blow molds, and all my inflatables, blow molds, all the things on my front lawn for Christmas lights, I'm slightly concerned, and I didn't even have the energy to bring them in today. So I'm ready to ride this one out. But I think when we look at this big picture about the NHL, it is easy for us to take all of the people that have gone into the COVID-19 protocol and think, wow, it's like everybody, and it's not. It's still a smaller percentage, but like Calgary has 17 people. Now, that doesn't mean 17 players, but that's still 17 people closely associated within that grouping that have tested positive for COVID. So, they're done until, I'd have to guess Christmas for sure. I don't think they're going to play until the new year, if you're being realistic about it. We've had games postponed in other places because of, Calgary was worried about getting back into Canada. Come to the U.S., people test positive. How do we get them back into Canada? We don't know if we can do that. And, the logistics of it are daunting. Even looking at the Golden Knights the other night are playing against Boston, who just happened to play against who, Ken?
Calgary.
And that's what we're concerned about. And the league, I should say, is concerned is there has been spread on the ice of COVID. And so they're trying to limit that. And I think by the time you get to, you get back to daily testing, you take away some of the freedoms, frankly, that the players had that they wanted so badly.
Yep.
They're just trying to make sure that they can control these outbreaks, because I think everybody accepts that there's going to be positive tests here and there. That's the nature of, not living inside a bubble any longer, but the players don't want to ever go back to that. They were miserable in the bubbles. So I think that at least the NHL and the NHLPA have been proactive recently to do this. I'm not sure they did it soon enough, considering the Senators situation, the Sharks situation earlier. Even the Golden Knights were kind of teetering there for a while, right? Yep. We were thinking, this may not go. So I think the league is going to get through this without having to do anything drastic, like pause the season. But I think we are going to get back towards what we saw last year, where this is not the end of the games being suspended or, kicked the can down the road. And, Olympics. Oh, okay. You know, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not even worrying about the Olympics, right? I'm just worrying about trying to get this season in the allotted time frame.
Well, but there is something we also need to worry about, and that's because of where the All-Star game is. I think if the All-Star game were in any of the other 31 cities, I don't think any of us would really care. And personally, I would be fully on board with saying, absolutely cancel it. It's a terrible idea. It makes absolutely no sense. However, being that it's here, understanding that the work that's gone in, a lot of people have tickets already. It's not something that comes often. It's not something the Golden Knights even really wanted, something that Bill Foley had said at the beginning. He would much rather have the draft just based on the amount of work that goes into an all-star game. I can only imagine the amount of work that's going into this all-star game to have it be up in the air here. Just simply taking a step back, I do not understand how you can potentially put one player from 32 different teams on the ice all together in the same place. That really makes very little sense to me. I'm honestly surprised that hasn't been taken off the table yet. Where are you on that?
The cross-pollination in the big Petri dish is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense for something that's an exhibition.
I think that they're going to have to be so cautious going into it of making sure that people that are selected for this team are tested. Well, everybody's going to be tested every day, but man, like, you can't have one person going that's going to have it there, and
but then they're going to come here, and how do we know if they got it while they were here and they're going to be here for a weekend? Like, my issue with the whole thing is I think the testing is kind of seen as the end all be all. And I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to ask the question of, why are we testing if we're not going to take it seriously? For instance, yesterday's game, they go on and play that game, even though a player who was on the ice, Brad Marchand, for morning skate. And again, I want to make sure I'm very clear in that I'm not trying to alienate people here. I'm not one that throws Calgary under the bus because they have 17 and blame them for being team 0 or whatever it is. Like, I don't want to play that game. But if the league is going to get a positive result back from a player that was on the ice with all the other players, they cannot, in good faith, go forward and play that game and believe that they're doing anything to stop the spread. So even if you test everybody here, it means absolutely nothing, because the second you have the test, then you're open to getting COVID again. So, like, I feel like it would probably behoove them to shut it down for a week or so and then come back and have a different discussion when we come back, because right now, we're just going to spin our wheels here. This thing's not going away. It will never go away. And it seems like guys can test positive more than once in the same season. So what are we doing here?
Well, then we're never going to play hockey. So, like, the situation you just described is we're not going to play hockey. But like, it's a week isn't going to change this.
No, but a week is going to calm down the spread between teams. A week is going to reset where we were coming in, where it was one player here, one player there, and if we're catching them quickly enough. And then, to me, if there's a situation like we had last night, it should be a no question, stop the game. There is no game today. He was on the ice, he tested positive, that's it. We're off today, we'll figure it out in 24 hours. Like, you have to take that approach if you're serious about stopping the spread of COVID. The fact of the matter is they aren't.
Well, they're serious enough to try to keep it under 7 or 8 players on a team. And there's a lot of hoping going on. Well, there's a threshold that we don't know what it is. And it's to the point where, can they contain? Is it too many? And man, for a while, you're talking about teams lobbying to have games postponed, like the Islanders.
Which Vegas probably should have last night. It was a good spot to win the game, and they did.
This is the mentality, though. Like, I'm not going to try to argue this in either way, but the mentality that's being at play here is that, all right, it's one guy. Let's hope that nobody else grabs it, and maybe we get lucky here, and then we're good to go.
Which is ridiculous.
Patrice Bergeron has it today. Yeah, and so you do wonder, how much deeper does this go down without knowing different things about variants. But I just, if we start really shutting everything down, we're never going to play hockey. Period.
Correct.
So I think that, especially because, I mean, frankly, man, none of these players have really been that ill from it in a long time, right? Like, this is pre-vaccination. Yes. Like, Alex Stalock, stopped his career. Okay. Straight up, COVID ended Alex Stalock's career. I'm trying to think of the prospect of the Minnesota system.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I can't come up with his
Marco
name.
Rossi maybe is his, I can't remember which his name, but like, you know, really serious battle. Anton Hudobin, really serious battle with it. But like since vaccination, like these players have been okay. The problem is that they can't just trot them out there with COVID knowingly. So I feel like there's this fine line being played right now that we're just hoping we get it to go. And I don't have answers for it. I just think that we're at a stage where there's enough teams that are able to play. I don't foresee the league shutting down whatsoever. I don't. Unless it's like 10 teams that can't play. That'd be maybe when you start thinking about it.
Which, again, like my argument remains the same, which is if you're going to play a game with a player that was on the ice in morning skate and then eventually play that we knew there was going to be another guy on Boston. Now you're saying all of the Vegas is exposed to it, and then you're going to have Vegas go play New York. Boston's going to go play someone else, and then this is how this works. It's either we take the thing seriously or we don't. And to me, at some point, and I don't know if we're at that point yet or not, but at some point, the world is going to have to understand that the flu started in 1910 or something. This thing will be with us the rest of our lives. Eventually, we're going to have to deal with it. Eventually, we're going to have to deal with, all right, well, if you get it, you're sick for a few days. We have the answers for it. I don't know if we're there yet. And I'm not condoning that yet. I don't know. But eventually we have to get there. And then now, the new strain, and everyone gets freaked out about the new strain, except the new strain seemingly is less dangerous than the previous strains.
Yeah, I got no answers on this.
Nobody does.
We're at that stage now where it's like, I'm glad enough we're playing hockey.
It just feels hypocritical, I guess.
I do feel like, and I think we're kind of getting into a philosophical debate in some ways in that, and I don't think it's really a debate. We're just discussing it that, really what it comes down to is like, when's going to be the tipping point where people just go, okay, this is the flu. You're right.
Correct.
Like basically the vaccinated people aren't getting very sick off this thing
Nope.
that we've seen. Like the players are all coming back. Like it's whether they get their win back in a certain time frame. Some are symptomatic. Some have had it harder than others. But like so far this season, everybody's come back to play. So I don't know. I do agree that it's like you look at the degrees of separation. There's no degrees of separation. I mean, like we're even talking. This started 2 seasons ago, 19-20 season, 2019-20 season. Like it really all started from a contaminated locker room, I believe, in LA that the Senators got into after a basketball game.
From basketball, yeah.
If I remember the time frame on this, and that pretty much like blew it up, and that's what we have. So,
well, and they ended up making the right decision at that point, because had they tried to play through it, then the entire country shuts down. They would have looked like idiots. But we're not headed back there. I do think it is fair to say, like, okay, well, the Golden Knights do have a player that had a hard time getting over it. And I don't know if that was COVID or if that was just him being able to get his win back. That's Matthias Janmark. He's been much better since. And I hate to compare it to the flu because there's such a crazy, like, political debate there that I don't want to go into. But, like, we have dealt with viruses in locker rooms for a long time. Why this one is being treated so differently, I still don't fully understand at this point.
No, because it's blasting people that aren't that. I mean,
it did.
It blasted people that weren't vaccinated hard, and it blasted some vaccinated people hard too,
except for one player.
Right. So anyway, it's
all right. Let's move on to hockey.
It is intrinsically tied to it. I think the consensus here, though, is that, hey, they're going to keep playing hockey, and we're just going to keep going through this whole goat rodeo for the next, like, 3 years until they just finally say, like, all right, if you got it, you're out of the lineup.
Well, I mean, if you're on sort of leaning towards the way I'm seemingly headed, there was some news out of the NFL today that they're considering, if you get the booster, we're not testing you anymore. Other teams taking that and starting that precedent could potentially be a good thing. Like, I just think of most businesses across the country. If you go and work at a McDonald's, they're not testing you every single day. If you don't feel good, you go home. Like, at some point, we're going to have to be the rest of the businesses. But whatever. All right. So let's look at, let's just throw the Olympics out there. I'll finish with that. They're not going, right?
I actually think that they're still going to leave it up to the players. And I can't see a world where they end up going. I can't.
They can't.
You're going to have to get an awful lot of young players that are just thinking they're invincible and they don't care about anything and they don't even realize about world politics and China making a tennis player disappear and the ramifications of everything else, and being in a country that you don't know their healthcare system, you don't know their quarantine protocols for real. They're very murky. Like the whole political side of this with China is a whole different ballgame for 23-year-old hockey players that have done nothing but look at a puck for 20 years of their lives. Okay. I think you'll get enough young guys that just want to go no matter what. The Russians are going to want to go no matter what. But man, anybody older with families, Alex Petrangelo encapsulated it. I've got 4 kids under 3.5 years old, he said. To me, that was code for, not a chance I'm going to that.
Not going,
You know, Connor McDavid said he was unsettled. Connor McDavid might as well have dropped 18 F-bombs and turned a table over by saying he was unsettled. That's very strong language for Connor McDavid. So, man, I wouldn't want to get stuck in China for 2 months. I don't know. Oh, here's one. Do you think players in non-contenders are more likely?
Think players non-contenders are more likely to go? To me, no. I don't think it has anything to do with the NHL standings.
Yeah. So man, I'd be shocked if they went. I really would. But I think I do think there's going to be a pretty vocal section of players that would just go no matter what, though. I do believe that they're going. I don't care. I'm going.
Not sure that's the smartest group at the moment. And like someone's going to have to sit a lot of them down and explain a lot of the things you were just going through. And they say 3 to 5 weeks, but what if they change their mind in week 4?
It's a different country.
Now it's 17. Like, sorry, it's very possible. So to me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I think we're too late. I know I've heard a lot of people on Twitter saying we'll just play a World Cup in Vegas. I think we're too far down the path of it's too late to try and do that. I don't think that's possible. If you're okay with playing an all-star game, I could make the argument that have Sweden play Finland and US play Canada for a game and call it a day instead of the all-star game. That doesn't sound like a horrible idea. But again, I can't make the argument that they should actually play the all-star game, even though I really want to go.
There's actually we just got a good comment in here from Stephanie asking, will AHL players be able to go if NHL players can't? Well, yeah, there would be availability for that to happen, but they're going to have the same concerns.
They should.
Yeah. And I think they'd be excited to go for sure, but I'm just not sure the direction it would take with that. The answer is yes, they absolutely could. I'm just not sure it's that different. So,
all right, we're going to move into the hockey and we're going to move into 2 red hot players. But first, I'm going to tell you that this goalie interference episode and all goalie interference episodes are brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, 5 of 6. Is that what it is? 5 of 6 they've won?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. When winning
I'll
matters.
I'll double check on that one, but I sure believe it is.
And I would imagine 5 of 6 probably wouldn't even be that great for the Jimerson Law Firm. They're going for 6 of 6. They're going for 82 of 82. And that's the plan at the Jimerson Law Firm. Fantastic Golden Knights fans, fantastic supporters of the site. Thank you to them. And thank you to Mike for making this happen. Because without you, we wouldn't have goalie interference. Otherwise, we would just have some other show and we would have probably a dumb name.
Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thank you for believing in me still, because you have to believe in somebody.
People who actually watch us. Yes. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure why this was everything last night, but every single tweet I got last night was Eichel can't play center. You can't displace Chandler Stephenson. Now, before we get into that topic, let's just start with Chandler Stephenson. I think Max Pacioretty has to also be into that, but to me, Max Pacioretty scoring, 9 games in a row now, or 7? What is it?
It's crazy.
It's a lot.
It's since he came back into the lineup, we're talking like 10 games.
Yeah, I think it's 9. I think it's a 9-game scoring streak at this point. Yeah. That is not nearly as surprising to me. Oh, it's a 7-game scoring streak. Either way,
yes,
maybe it'll be 9 in a couple of days. Give him a minute. It's not nearly as surprising to me as Chandler Stephenson, 4th-line center on Stanley Cup contender, put on basically waivers. Vegas ends up trading a pick for him, so he doesn't have to go on waivers. Immediately thrown on Vegas's 3rd line, 4th line at different times. Really didn't make his way all the way up the lineup until last year for the majority of time. he's well on a point per game pace. Like, this is not a fluky point per game pace. This isn't
it's happening.
It's not. He's played 7 and he had 5 in one game. Like, I know he's got 7 in the last couple of games, but this is a real, legitimate pace. The first question I bring you is, can it continue?
It will trail off. But I think that he is legitimately looking at every bit of a 65 to 70 point season.
Assuming he plays enough games, right?
Of course, all of that. And by the way, my number for Pacioretty, I had 10 in my head because he has 10 goals during that 7-game span. And he's had points in 10 straight games.
Yeah, everything but
or 9 straight games, whatever. Max Pacioretty's killing it. Let's just say that. But yeah, like when I watched Stephenson, like I remember, early in his career when he was in Hershey, and you guys know I make no bones about it. I made most of my career in the American League. You saw these glimpses. You saw the speed. You saw him get free. I faced him on a lot of breakaways. I saw him go 5-hole on me. I'm not sure if he scored. I can't remember, but I remember that exact move. And I always thought that this is a guy who's probably kind of on the cusp of things, but not quite there. And then, bang! It's like once he got with the players he needed to really elevate, it brought him there. But this year's been something totally different. It's a whole different animal. Right, because he hasn't been relying on Mark Stone the whole season, and he wasn't relying on Max Pacioretty the whole year. He was doing it himself, and that's what really impresses me, is because what he was able to do with those two in absence was go point a game, lead the team in scoring, and when they came back, he's been even better.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
because I just the confidence that he's playing with, I've never seen. Like, that pass to Max Pacioretty for the second goal of the night, I believe it was.
Yeah.
That was an absolute, like, hoper of a pass that I don't think many people would try. Like, Stone wins a board battle, kicks it to Stephenson, and he's pretty much standing still, and he looks up and he sees Pacioretty in stride, and he's like, why not? Whoop! Flicks that baby cross-ice, little sauce on it.
The catch was ridiculous, too.
Yeah, I mean, just... I think that he's at a level now where he truly feels comfortable to be himself in the NHL, where he's not afraid to do those things. And that's where I think the confidence will come from it. He will trail off. Everybody trails off, man. Like, goalies start the year, 940 save percentage at, by Christmas time. Somebody's at a 938 or 39. And by the end of the year, somebody's always at the top's a 928. Like, it is the way it works.
Yep.
I mean, Leon Draisaitl's trailed off considerably in Edmonton from his scoring pace in the last 7-8 games.
That team as a whole.
And then absolutely, reality has caught up to them. But there is really interesting storylines being built into this, because nobody expected this from Chandler Stephenson, not even the front office. Okay. They thought Stephenson, in my eyes at least, was the person you're just going to bump on down to the third line when Eichel shows up, and Stephenson's going to bring up the third line and be a phenomenal third line player that should probably be a second line centerman on most teams in the NHL. And I mean, he's a top 2 centerman in the NHL now, period. Any team in the league.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to.
Playing the way he's playing. Well, I mean, that could change if he were to go to a different team, but yes. Because
he's even found scoring touch.
Correct.
Right? Like, I mean, like last year, it was like, in the years before, it's kind of like, okay, breakaway, rushes, that's when you'd expect to see it. Now he's getting to soft areas. It's on and off his blade. It's in the net. I mean, he's not a pure sniper by any stretch.
He's holding the puck a lot more than he ever had before, too, which that's where confidence, I think, comes in.
100%. So he's adjusted to his role. And now he's got 2 wagon teammates alongside of him in Stone and Pacioretty. And God, it's going to be interesting because, like, I would not want to split these guys up. Let's
dive into that.
We're going to.
First of all, let me throw the disclaimer out there, because I feel like I have to say this every single time. Jack Eichel's not playing anytime soon.
Nope.
They don't have to make this decision anytime soon. And then also, once they make the decision, either other players are going to have to be out to make this possible so that they can stay under the cap, or they have to trade other players. So you're never going to be able to say, okay, well, it just means put this guy with this guy and this guy, move him down. If Eichel comes back in, he's on the third line, so the misfits. No, it's not realistic. That's not a real thing. However, just for the sake of playing the game, let's just take Eichel, Stephenson, Stone, Pacioretty. So just those. Completely ignore the misfit line. Just start with the top, saying I'm building a top line to play in the playoffs to win me a Stanley Cup. Are you even considering Jack Eichel right now in that slot?
Not right now. I'm not. I'm, and this is the thing. Jack Eichel could come back and be a totally different player than what the league has seen before. He could be he didn't even always have incredible years in Buffalo. Like, he had some pretty okay years, honestly.
Very good.
Yeah. And you have to think a player like him alongside, if he's with Stone and Pacioretty or whoever he's with on Vegas that can produce in the top couple lines, you'd expect him to be able to get it going. But I'm always wary of somebody coming off of that big of an injury and that big of a recovery.
New system, too.
New systems, new coaching staff, all that. He'll be fine with playing with the players themselves. He'll slot in, no problem with that. But, man, it'll take him 2 weeks to get used to that system. Remember Alex Pietrangelo last year? It took him 2 months to get used to how they were playing. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think last year it was until, end of January. We started the season beginning of January. End of January, maybe? End of January.
It was in the middle, 15th, I think.
Yeah, I thought it almost took him a month before he got going. Then he got COVID. Then he got hurt. Like, it was stutter steps. Like, if Jack Eichel has anything like that, like, let's say he comes back and he just has a little injury or something, like, he may never get going this year.
Yep.
That's a very realistic possibility. It can happen. Next season, by all means, hit the gas, man. Like, he's going to be rocking. Yeah, dude, he's going to be rocking. But there's a lot of question marks. But if you are Golden Knights management, and if you're Pete DeBoer, I still view that as a big strength, that you're going to have Eichel, Karlsson, Stephenson, Nick Waugh looking as your four. I love Nick Waugh as a fourth line centerman.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's awesome there. So I think it's a big strength for them if that's the case, no matter where they shuffle them. But, man, it's going to be really, really interesting when he comes back. Like,
I don't think Nick Waugh's ever going to play fourth line center when Jack Eichel's on the team, because I don't think they're ever going to have the depth to actually be able to do it. I think you're still going to see the Kolazars and Jan Marks and, Brooks, Amadio, those types of guys down there. I just think that they're going to find a way to move Nick Waugh up on the wing of whoever they have to do.
If they want to. I don't like Nick Waugh as a winger.
I don't really either, but I think that that's the way that it's going to end up. I just don't see them leaning on him, because if you were planning on that, you should probably be doing that every single night, and he's not getting that role every single night. They had an opportunity to put Nick Waugh as a first-line center, and they went for Keegan Kolazar.
Yeah, that surprised me. I'll say that.
And that was just wrong. Like, that was something I wanted to ask you. If a coach makes a terrible decision and then corrects the terrible decision and makes the right decision, is he a good coach for adjusting to for changing his system? Like, is that adjustment good, or are you just like, she shouldn't have done that?
Well, sometimes they throw spaghetti at the wall, and sometimes
has anyone ever done that?
I've done it. I did it at my house as a kid. Don't tell my parents, because it has starch and it, like the paint. It just.
You've done it, and you did it because you were mad, or like you heard the saying and you're like, I got to try this.
Well, I was attempting to cook, and I wanted to see if it was done.
Did you fling it with
I don't know if I was like 15, 16, 17, but I wanted to see how al dente it was. So I tossed that sucker right against the wall. Well, I heard the phrase "spaghetti against the wall." See if it's done. So, like, I take things very literally. If the people out there that know me best realize that I take things in a very literal sense.
Do you have one of those spoons that has the little fingers that picks up the pasta real nicely, or do you use like?
I don't tend to eat pasta often because it goes right to my hips. It's terrible for you. It may be delicious, but pasta is awful for you. It is one of the
Italians are all thin and nice. And
are you speaking with your hands, Ken?
Mamma mia. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I went there for a little while. They all seem to have it under control, and they do only eat pasta and pizza. That's literally the only thing I saw. There was some seafood when we were in Venice, but
Let's what were we talking about before we
We were
got
talking about
sidetracked?
Jack Eichel
Yes.
and Wah, and my question was, when they put Keegan Kolazar on the first line and then quickly realized that that was stupid, was it smart or was it stupid because they did it in the first place?
Yeah, it's a good reason to abort. Like I do think it's like, this is where I was going. Now I remember. Like, I apologize, I get sidetracked. Squirrel, but coaches do look to try to shake things up sometimes. And sometimes you're rewarding somebody. Okay. And I can't remember the context of Kolasar going up, but if somebody's had a great game and you got a hold of Phil, sometimes you do that. That's one reason.
The reason he gave after the game, this was DeBoer. They were playing. Who were they playing?
Which night was
Philadelphia. They were playing Philadelphia.
Because I remember it happening and me just going, oof.
The reason he said he did it was because he wanted to balance his centers out.
Oh,
and that Nick Waugh was a better option to play against Kevin Hayes, and then Kevin Hayes destroyed Nick Waugh on the third line, and then Nick Waugh went up to the first line, and Kevin Hayes destroyed Keegan Kolazar on the third line.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a team you got to worry about Couturier in the faceoff circle. Like,
that's what he was saying. I'm not a faceoff guy, but
yeah, I mean, Couturier went 61% that night, but
it's fine.
I know that some people don't like that type of that stat, but I mean, like when a coach does something like that and they immediately abort, I think you got to give them credit because they're making a decisive decision. Like, is it a great decision to put Keegan Kolazar as a center in the first line? I mean, I can't imagine anybody thought this was going to work, but you don't know the reasoning for it. I can't read a mind. And you got to remember, what they say in press conferences is what they want to tell you.
I know.
It really is. Like, you can, like, my favorite is when Pacioretty gets just an absolute leading the witness softball question. And then he's so adept at doing the interviews that he just plays his game and he answers. And he's so kind. He's so nice, because it'll just be, hey, how'd you guys make it happen that period? And or whatever it is, it's kind of like a very basic question, and he'll expand on it for no reason. He has not been asked a question that is expandable, and he'll expand and he'll give a legit answer. And
captain.
Yeah, it's
Stone's starting to do it, actually.
Yeah. So it's cool to see. But
it's helpful for us. I mean, it's nice for us writing stories. I do think that, like, you should be made fun of if you ask a question that doesn't end in question mark.
Yes, I agree. So I got a topic for you I wanted to hit real quick, but and it's quick, but man, like, didn't it feel good to see Shea Theodore finally score a goal? It felt like it had been like years since
it was fluky, but yeah, it was nice.
It just, like, he pops one that's a goofball goal. It's going high, goes off the D, off the bar, and down and in. But, like, even leading to that goal, though, to me was a sign of how this team has grown in the last couple of weeks. And not just the player, they've grown in skill. They've gotten better players back. And ironically enough, it was Ben Hutton who put the puck over to Theodore, but it's the speed that they're moving the puck now.
Well, Stevenson's pass was excellent too, yeah.
100%. But they're moving the puck so much faster to me. Like, the eye test of it, not just power. Like, there was a couple of times last game on the power play where I just went, man, they're snapping it.
Yeah.
Like, where's this been? And then I realized, okay, yeah.
Good players.
Pacioretty's on the ice. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different ball game when you have your top players out there. But it's still kind of that will to win. Like, you still got to move the puck, even if you're not the best players. But
I don't feel that great about that Theodore goal for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not replicable. You're not going to get those very often, and that's something that we've seen from this team for too long. That if they're shooting it into four bodies, they may go in, on the road in Boston in January or December. They ain't going in April and May. They're not. Like,
I agree, but, like, this is my point of it, is that it just, if we think it feels good to see him score, how does it feel for him? This is one of those internal levee breaks where it's like, finally it went in.
But that's not what we need out of Shea Theodore. Like, I don't need him I don't need shots from the point finding their way through. What I need is him taking on players, him joining the rush, him allowing things. Now, there's an argument to be made that him jumping up in the rush actually held that defenseman up on the long Stephenson to Pacioretty pass. If you watch it back, he is joining that rush. The defenseman's kind of caught in two minds and his stick position switches. That's why the pass gets through. That's what I want out of Shea Theodore. I want plays at the blue line. He's taking guys on. He's breaking down the defense and stretching them out. I don't need flinging shots from the point. I think they're too talented to play that game. And I felt like early in the game they were falling into that. And to me, 3 of the 4 goals are complete flukes last night. Yeah, they dominate the game, but like,
that's my point, is they finally got a bounce like that. Like,
we haven't seen bounces all year. They just can't. They can't be healthy. Like,
I know, but like, I'm telling you, man, in the room and in the players' minds, this stuff matters. Like, he walked out of that game going, "Finally, I scored," and now, like, that little bit of confidence might be the catalyst for him to go and dance a guy next game.
If that's what happens, then
so
I am all on.
That's my point. I'm not taking away the chintziness of some of those goals. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault throws a pass backdoor, goes off 2 bodies and in. But again, they're snapping the puck quicker. They're moving it. Like, their habits were better that game. That's why they dominated the game. Like, we're not sitting here talking about Robin Lehner for a reason, because all Robin had to do was be fine. And I tell you what,
touch the puck, yeah.
What a great game for Robin Lehner to have, where you could just go out and not feel that pressure and play, allow 1 goal, do your job. Like, it was simple. And I think that was a pretty simple game in a lot of ways. Boston didn't impress me a bit. And what's interesting is people still think Boston's Boston, and Boston hasn't been Boston this year.
And especially if they don't have Marchand.
Marchand's out. Like, they're, I mean, even with Smith out, like, they're missing a couple, another center, like, and they're missing David Krejci from last season.
He left.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll just clarify. Chris says deflections from point shots are replicable. I would agree if they had players that were actually good at tipping them. This team doesn't have it.
Right.
This team just doesn't have it. And that's fine. Like, they're not a team that's going to get into the dirty areas and dominate you that way. You don't have to be. That's fine. Like, they'll do it enough to make the play. That's not, to me, the type of goal they should be looking for, especially with the talent they have on the blue line. Just that's not how I think they should be playing.
Yeah, but those goals you need as well. You need the junkers occasionally here and there.
You'll take them, but if that's what you're going to become reliant on, you're going to get bounced. And again, like, my biggest thing last night is they finally defended. They were fantastic at the defensive blue line. That's why I feel so good coming out of that game. Is the game started out and I watched Boston bang their heads into the wall like 7 times in the first 5 minutes on the entries. And I thought, ooh, if they keep doing this, Vegas is going to win this game by 6. And that's what happened. Only won by 3, but same concept.
I mean, and like, it's a pretty mundane game, actually. Like,
that's when the Golden Knights are at their best. That's how it goes.
Right. Because that's when those big individual skill moments will come through. When they play strong, structured defensive hockey, they can rely on their top end skill to make these plays. And now we can include Chandler Stephenson in that mix.
Correct.
100%. Dude, I couldn't get over that pass. Like, I was out of my seat when he's tossed it up to.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I do think, like, go back and watch it and watch the change of stick position from the defenseman. There's no way Stephenson could have possibly known he was going to do it, but he's got his stick in the passing lane, and then all of a sudden he switches it to the other side, and that's where the pass goes through. And it's like, well, why? It's because Theodore's rushing up.
Yep, and it was a confidence play. It's just Stephenson thinking, man, like, I think we're good here. And like, the best part was watching later in the game, because like, Pacioretty the guy can't miss right now.
Right.
And he scores his second goal, and it was kind of another junker, right? Like, another shot, high slot. Maybe there was some, like, a little interference in front or a screen, whatever.
I don't think he got the goalie, but it's a lucky goal, yeah.
Whatever it was, like, Pacioretty just threw it at the net on this one. This was not a laser beam off the corner, off the crossbar, elbow and in. He just tossed it at the net. And man, I've seen this so many times in my career. The guy just comes to the bench, and that's not Pacioretty specifically, but anybody, they're just laughing because it's like, I can't believe that went in. And if we can't expect Match Pacioretty to keep it going like this, He's not going to score every single game from here on out, but he's getting bounces right now, and he's feeling really good about himself. And that gives him the confidence to make these
for
plays.
sure.
Yeah,
no reason not to.
So, dude, and how about really quick? How about this one? This is dude. I got to bring this up. My favorite was against Dmitry Kulikov when he started doing this about his hair, and I think that was against Minnesota. That would have been Minnesota. That's where Kulikov is now. Oh my God, I can't remember if that was before or after we talked last, but like, no doubt in my mind, Kulikov's dyed tips. Frosted tips. Patrick, he's making fun of his frosted tips.
Fantastic. I wish we had the ability to play that at the moment, but we do not. I have another topic that is Max Pacioretty related. He's the one who actually said it, and I think we need to. It pokes me a little bit. We're going to bring Jason on first to discuss this a little bit because Jason heard it too, and then we were annoyed. What's the right word? Like what's the word I'm going for here?
How about angry? Not surprised?
Not surprised. That's for sure. But all right, so let's just put it up on the screen here. I mean, embarrassed maybe. Okay, I'll just put it up. Here we go. This is Max Pacioretty on the Agent Provocateur podcast with Alan Walsh. Quote, there just seems to be less pressure. He's talking about when he's playing in Vegas as opposed to playing in Montreal. Whether you admit it or not, there's no media here. And even if you don't read the media in Montreal, you know what's being said. In Vegas, you can lose 3 in a row and everyone's still positive. What does he mean by there's no media here?
It's because it's not a firestorm. I used to sit in the media scrums and think these are the biggest softball questions I've ever heard.
Do you know why?
Because it's not Canada, it's not big market, it's people within, that.
It's not projected as well.
I'm trying to make this I'm trying to be as kind as I can here and not sound condescending to the media folks in Vegas, who I think are really genuine and good, and they do their best, but they haven't had hockey as their background. They haven't done it for 20 years. And that doesn't make them feel empowered to make judgment calls on how people are playing and hold their feet to the fire because they don't know the game well enough. A lot of people. That's my impression. Okay. If I was the player, if I received a lot of the questions that I heard over the years, I constantly on set was going, somebody please ask a hockey question. Somebody please ask them how they shut down the Vancouver Canucks at the blue line instead of, hey, you look great on that first goal. What'd you do on that one? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was dying to hear. And I think that's just kind of how it is. And there's not a ton of media. Like, in Montreal, in Toronto, and, he's coming from Montreal, which is just a different animal. You can't go out to a scrum without there being 25 people, and they are just in-your-face questions, period. And so I've seen cities that have less media than Vegas. I've played there. I played in Florida. I played in Arizona.
Anaheim travels with 2 usually.
Right.
If that.
So,
but let me defend the media a little bit, because I want to explain why I think he believes there's no media here. And I think the reason for it is because most of the media that is in and around the team is employed by the team. You were employed by the team for a majority of last season. You would ask questions rarely in press conferences. But if you go into back when we were in the locker room, there were times where there would be 20 media members in the locker room, and 11 of them were employed by the team. Right. And what ends up happening is when there's 7 questions in a press conference and we only have time for whatever X amount, you can't really ask serious questions. And what that has led to a very soft style of asking the questions. And then they get mad when you ask a serious question. Pete DeBoer has stormed off of the press conference stage. Gerard Gallant stormed off the press conference stage. I was literally not allowed to ask questions in the bubble because I asked a question early on in the season about the goaltending. And I said, is this your starter now, when Robin Lehner became their starter because of COVID? They have found a way. It's not over the top. They're not shutting anybody out. We're still there. I'm not saying that. They have created a style of media that is very, very soft. And if you are anything but soft, it is heavily frowned upon by everyone in the organization, including the players.
It's very controlled messaging. I agree. I lived it. So but that's a team's right, but it also is the media just acquiescing in a lot of ways and going, well, we put our hands up. What can we do? And
also they're afraid they don't want to lose access. And that's something that they, they make their money on, or their outlet does. They have to be in that locker room. So it creates a little bit of, not tension. I think it creates a little bit of the media members having to tiptoe around issues.
Well, there's a big intimidation factor there. 100%.
Well, there's I think you have to remember that this team, they don't have a 7-game losing streak. They don't have they were out of the playoffs for 4 days and they fired their coach over it. There isn't bad times for this team. And then if you think that we're not critical when they're down 3-1 against Dallas and we're asking questions like, why don't you change things? And the worst thing we can do is change. I still, deathbed quote for me. The fact of the matter is they don't have very many bad times. And when they do, this is another part that's been a problem with COVID. If you watch, when the Golden Knights win the game, they trot out the entire top 6 and usually every other player that scores. When they lose, it's Pete DeBoer and whoever played the best, usually 1 or 2 players. If Riley Smith wasn't absolutely horrible in the game, he's one of the 2.
Or Alec Martinez, who we haven't seen. He is
Alec Martinez, who's not there, but it's always the same guys. And so what happens is, if I get Riley Smith, this is speaking as a media member, there is nothing I can ask Riley Smith that is going to get a good critical answer back. If you give me Jonathan Marchessault, I can get it. You give me Nate Schmidt, I can get it. I will ask said questions. But we cannot ask them because we're not provided the option to talk to these players. Thank you, COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the players...
I don't disagree with you guys at all. It frustrated me for a while. I think that, I've been in a lot of different organizations that handle things different ways. And the bottom line is, I think that teams and players especially just want to be treated what they perceive to be fairly. They don't mind hard questions. They don't mind critical questions. They don't want gotcha questions, right?
I think Golden Knights players do mind critical questions because of the environment that was created, and Pacioretty's surprised by that.
They get used to it and they get defensive about it really quickly. And part of that is, you get to this culture of hey, we've been this good for this long. Why we don't deserve this question? We've been this good. And that's, I keep thinking this and I hope it doesn't go this way. Cause everybody that's watching the show is a VGK fan. What is this going to be like when the team sucks someday? I'm really curious to see how that plays, how a new fan base has to get used to the fact that a team will suck at some point.
Yep.
How does it play through? Because right now sucking is a very distant concept.
Well, we'll still be here. I will promise you that. And we will be here to tell you why they suck. And I actually think that people are going to like us more when they suck as opposed to right now, because right now we only care about one thing, and that's winning the Stanley Cup and not wasting this 5-year run that has been spectacular. Mm-hmm. It has to end in multiple Stanley Cups. If the word Vegas isn't etched on the Stanley Cup by the time they suck, we've got a huge problem. So we get super mad about that. When they suck, we're going to be super positive. Look at this coming up. Look at this great play.
If and when they Stanley Cup, the league's going to be so mad, players and teams. There is. I mean, there's a ton of hubris that teams around the league are looking at the Golden Knights and thinking, these guys, they come in this quick, they don't even have to earn it, blah blah blah. They just horse trade, and then they're going to win the thing. And to me, it's also trade
for Jack Eichel. Why didn't you acquire Alex Pietrangelo?
That's what I mean.
Come on.
Other teams haven't had the balls to do it. They play it safe, and I'm more risk averse than a lot of people. I think in some ways, I still don't think the Eichel deal in my eyes was the right way to go in terms of building your team out. But man, I 100% will never fault a team that at least goes for it. And if they win the cup, then shame on everybody else for not having the guts to try to go for it.
I'm writing a book.
So that's how I feel. If they win it, they win it. I don't see any shame, but man, there will be a ton of people around the league that are mad about it. That are just
Mike,
pissed.
what
jealous,
scares me.
really is the right word.
What scares me the most about that quote is it sounds like there's no pressure. Okay, maybe there's internal pressure, and the environment that they're around is too comfortable. And I'll give you 2 examples. San Jose and Anaheim during the last decade probably one of those teams should have won the cup. They're some of the most protected players. If you go into the San Jose locker room after a loss, Brent Burns will storm off immediately after one question. Same with Erik Karlsson. They're protected. They know that they don't have to answer tough questions. And I mean, I hate saying it, but is this an environment that's heading that way where it's too comfortable?
It's already there.
There's almost, it's good when there's fan pressure, right? I don't think there's much fan pressure in Vegas, and there's certainly not media pressure. So I don't know. That does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't see the fan pressure either right now, but that's because the team's been so good. I mean, the first inkling we got of it, it was a big deal when they got booed last season. We'd never heard them get booed until last season.
They got booed earlier this year, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big step. But it always really bothered me, the players that just wouldn't stand in there and answer questions. How hard is it to answer a question? Like when you're asked a question as a player, and this pisses me off about PR departments really in a lot of cities. This is not unique to Vegas team, but this is a league-wide thing that I think sucks for hockey in general, that when you're a player and you're asked a question, who's in control?
The player.
It should be the player.
Player. You were asked a question. If you don't like the question, all you have to do is say, well, I'm sorry. I don't think that that's how we're playing or whatever. Or in some cases, you can even deflect it and say, well, I appreciate your question, but I do think that's better asked for Coach DeBoer or whoever. Like, you can walk around these things if you don't want to answer them in a courteous manner, or you can just face the music and go for it. And that's where storming off or not taking questions, like, it always bugged me. And it bugged me as a goalie because the only time I ever got interviewed was when I played a good game. Yeah. If I played like shit, I wasn't getting interviewed. And it's like, there were a lot of games that people would look at and think I played so poorly that all I wanted was a chance to defend myself. And I never got that because of some of the goals, whether they were, I could explain why they went in. Like, okay, it tipped. Did you see it get tipped? Blah, blah, blah. Like there's things that you can do to kind of help yourself a bit and justify it. And you never get that opportunity. I wanted that chance. But
I think that what you're kind of explaining is something that I definitely miss from the times of when we were able to go in the locker room. It's like, I know what I'm seeing. I understand what I'm seeing. But a lot of times there are things that they've made a change or they're doing different things or whatever. And I'm able to speak to some players and they say, well, wait a minute. Well, you saw it this way. Let's look at it this way. I have a good example. Is like David Perron was a player who he actually told me a couple of times, go watch it again and let me know what you see when you watch it again. And I'll do the same. And then we would have a discussion the next day and we would come up with things. I think the biggest piece for me is when in this market, one critical question wipes out all positive questions for the last 2 months. Yeah, and that that I think is created by the Golden Knights, and I think that's by design.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a underground layer where they're keeping people from asking questions, but you guys would know better than me on that. And if that's the case, I don't like it, but I don't know. I just think that everybody should have media. If you have a card, you should have media access. You should be able to ask questions, period. No matter how bad your questions are, no matter how good they are, whatever it is, you learn from them.
Right.
And it's been so like Zoom has.
It's horrible.
It's just changed everything because you guys know from a journalistic perspective, from a data mining perspective, you learn the most when you're in the locker room. I did, like, man, and what I would do as an analyst, those conversations in the locker room, just absolute gold.
Yeah.
And half of it's because I knew half the guys. I played with them, but like, I remember one time I'm talking to Marshy and I'm like, hey man, like, have you changed your sticks this year? Oh yeah, I did this too. I went to a little different flex, tried that. And it's just like, man, it's instant gold for your broadcast where it's like, he felt like he couldn't get it on and off as quick, but his stick blade quick enough. And you keep it in your back pocket until he finally pots one like that. And then bang, yeah, change the sticks this summer, quicker kick point. Like you can't even ask those questions via Zoom because they don't give you enough time in the first place.
There's no follow-up.
And fans are missing out. Fans are missing out not knowing those little nuggets because in a way, that's what, I mean, fans love to know what their favorite player's food is, or, you know, what their favorite TV show is. All this crap that you're talking about, just picking up stuff in a locker room. The fans are missing out on that.
These are the things.
Look at John Merrill. Look at John Merrill. They ran a video for John Merrill coming back, and the very first thing they showed in the video was him on his scooter.
Right. These are the things that the NHL misses the boat on, that we don't need to dumb down our broadcast and talk about the intricacies of a 1-3-1 and a forecheck and things like, and I don't mean dumb it down but ignore them. Like, we still have to talk about them, but if somebody doesn't know something, we don't need to belabor it. We don't need to spend forever talking about offsides, because if somebody doesn't know it today, they do this. They pick this up and they Google it and they figure it out. Yep. What's more interesting and what gets people involved is when you find out their backstory, when you find out what makes a player tick, when you find out, you know, they've changed their equipment, or they had a birth of a child and now they're inspired. Chandler Stephenson's grandma dies and he comes back and has an unbelievable game, you know, and we hear about that one. But there's a lot of little things that you don't know. And we have to do a better job of telling those stories. TNT's done a good job of that, by the way.
They've been great.
Like when I get off here, I'm going to go watch the end of this Kraken game. And I think they've done a great job in humanizing our sport. It's the reason why, like, guys, I'm a huge racing fan. I couldn't get anybody to watch racing. I couldn't get anybody to watch F1. Couldn't get anybody to watch IndyCar. Now everybody loves F1 because of a goddamn Netflix series.
Yep.
I didn't know this.
People are. It makes a huge difference. I made that argument a million times about the Olympics. 4 minutes before the race starts doesn't do it. But when I have hour-long conversations on here with Connor Fields and then he crashes, I'm literally sick watching the thing. Like,
right.
You need backstory, and that's what makes professional sports so awesome. Is we have 6 months of backstory before they play an important game.
It makes it engaging, you know.
And,
like you
and
want
I do think
to root for
that particular quote, "There is no media in Vegas," it kills me, because it just means the fans aren't going to be connected to you. And I do think it's fair to argue these fans are not as connected to the initial team as they were to the Misfits as they are to the current players now. They're not going to be as connected to Jack Eichel. They're not as connected to Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty and Alex Pietrangelo as they were to David Perron, Nate Schmidt. And a huge reason of that is that the media has not been able to do a lot of the things that they used to be able to do.
Yeah. And let's be real, COVID's played into that. We've just talked about how Zoom's done it, but they're not the original ones. That is true. And Vegas runs a tighter ship than most organizations in terms of player access. Like a lot of cities, your player access is a little bit easier. When things were normal, you know, you'd go to practice and you could meet players, no problem, in a lot of cities. And that doesn't really happen in Vegas. Like
a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a pretty big curtain. So
but
I don't
think about it.
Going to come back.
It's rampant around the league. I mean, Joe Thornton was a captain for over a decade in San Jose, and he never spoke to the media. He wasn't comfortable with it, and the team allowed that. I mean,
that's their job.
You can't. That's really unacceptable if you're a fan to not hear from your captain at least twice, 3 times a week.
So Mark Stone's tremendous.
Yeah. Oh, he's good. Yeah. I mean, he's getting better at it too, actually. I mean,
for sure.
You know, you grow into that role, you get used to media. Some guys just can't do it naturally. They're not thespians by nature, you know? So, but let's look at this upcoming week here, guys. Like,
I have one more question for you before we go to the upcoming week. I asked for some questions on Twitter, and this was a very good question, which is also
a great
Max
question.
Pacioretty. What makes Max Pacioretty's release so difficult to read?
Well, obviously it comes off his blade fast. That's no surprise. That's not earth shattering. But he disguises it really well. And the reason being is that he starts the puck kind of towards the toe of the blade, and he drags it almost to the heel of the blade before releasing it. And now that's not that unique, but it's the quickness that he does it. Yeah. And by moving it that 3 to 4 to 5 inches, it changes the angle slightly, and it's a bullet. And so to me, it's the way he curls it as he shoots, and he's got a ton of wrist involved in it. And if you've ever, like, you ever get to shake Max Pacioretty's hand, like he's got absolute like fire, like fire hoses, right? Like not limp fire hoses. We're talking like water flowing through the fire hose. Try to pick that thing up, like just like old man strength. You know what I mean? Like he's strong. And so like his wrists are really fast, and it goes toe to kind of heel, back to toe quickly, and it changes the angle, and it goes so quickly that it makes it really difficult to read. Like when I would practice against him, play against him, I couldn't tell. I could tell whether it was going high or low. I could not tell which side it was going to, and that's not normal. Usually what my tell is a side before it is
up or down,
amplitude, up or down, vertical. With Pacioretty, it was which direction is it going versus up or down, and that's way
because he's dragging it.
It's because of that little drag, and because he uses a lot of wrist. Okay, like there's a lot of wrist. I don't have a great way to describe that to you, but he uses his wrists a lot to generate that velocity, and because of that, you turn your wrist 5 degrees one way or the other, and the puck goes different directions. Some people generate velocity on the shot, and I'm a naturally right-handed shooter, so I'm better by doing this. But some of them will try to really just lean in on it, and they're using the stick, they're using the flex of the stick, and that's not that Pacioretty isn't, but some of them are just like dragging it through and popping it off the blade, whereas he is kind of a combination, even more wrist than anything, and that's to me the directional change of it is really, really hard to read. Yeah, man,
Mike,
he scored a ton on me in practice.
There was one goal that you're basically describing. It was the second year of the postseason against San Jose, and everybody was almost ripping Martin Jones. How can you not get that? It's more or less, it was such a beautiful shot that Martin Jones had no chance. And I think what you're describing is, I think we're all seeing it now, just constantly, night after night.
He's one of the few players in the league that if he's inside the top of the circles, even at the top of the circle, he can beat you clean, period. And in today's game, a goalie getting beat clean by a wrist shot is not viewed as a good goal against, like ever.
Yep.
And if you roll back the tape to the 80s, you'll see Gretzky scoring goals on the ice from the blue line, and goalies just like kicking at it like this, like just, you know what I mean? And yes, I'm wearing shorts. I'm sorry. You got a little glimpse of the old thighs there. So,
wow.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's so different now. Like, he is, especially in stride, one of the few guys that'll just blow it past you, period. And you can tip your hat to him.
And he usually leads the league every year in wrist shots.
Yeah, she's a volume shooter. So
who's the nastiest shot you've seen?
Pacioretty's in terms of release and velocity is up there. The guy who gave me fits and was an absolute nightmare to me, and people always laugh when I say it, but he plays for the Florida Panthers. It's Frank Vatrano.
Really? Wow.
And this is, again, and this is predicated upon my career path, right? Like, I played against him a ton in the American Hockey League, and he lit me up when he's with the Providence Bruins. And then I play against him when he's in Florida, and I think he popped 2 on me there. Like, I can't read that guy's release. I mean, he beat me low blocker, low glove, like, and I think actually looking back, it was similar to Pacioretty, though, that he was he was very wristy in his shot, and I couldn't pick the side versus the height. That guy buried me, man. Frank Vatrano.
But how about Perron?
Minuteman.
Perron can shoot. Like, I wouldn't put him in the upper echelon. We both went to the Blues training camp his first year.
That was the year he made the team, right?
He made it right out of camp. He had white skates that Andy Murray threw in the trash, the head coach of the Blues, because you can't have white skates in hockey, even like halfway white skates.
Well, he's a Frenchie. Let him be French.
Actually, you know what? You guys just hold on to your hats here.
All
right, here we go.
Coming for you.
Love these. These are always great. What do we have today?
Oh no, they have to be video files.
Yeah. What are you trying to load? A picture?
Oh, can you do a picture? Can you do a slide?
You got the white skates?
You have to load it as like a slide or something. I don't know. If you email it to me, it'll probably pop. I can get it. Because it has to be a PDF. Maybe we'll have to save it till next week, or we can screen share. But that's always nervous because you never know what's going to be on your screen. You don't know what I'm shopping for on eBay right now.
I'm going to make this work. You guys keep talking in the background. I'm going to be searching for this thing. I'm going to be sending it to you on text here.
All right.
Hey,
Let's start.
You know what else is strong? You know what else is strong on Pacioretty? His follicles.
Oh, dude.
I was so nervous where that was headed.
Is that not the better name? Forget the money line. I'm sorry. It's a horrible name, right? For that top line, that's the nickname.
It doesn't mean anything.
Well, my man Darren Elliott came up with it, I heard, and I'll give DE is a great dude. So I'm not gonna slag on that one.
Oh, it's so unoriginal, especially in this town. And somebody threw out the 5 o'clock shadow line. That's perfect.
I don't know. I hate when we're trying to force nicknames to lines. Like it either happens or it doesn't. Like I don't know.
I tried really hard to get the fourth line, the meat grinders. They coined themselves the meat grinders. I was trying really hard.
They do it. That's great.
I was trying really hard to call them the CNR line, like GNR, like Guns N' Roses. I thought CNR was awesome, like Carrier, Nosek, Reeves, and it never stuck.
Meat grinders was always like slightly disgusting to me.
Yeah.
I just always felt uncomfortable.
And then the Bash Brothers.
I don't want to grind anyone's meat.
Bash Brothers kind of excluded Nosek from the whole, equation. So
I mean, so did meat grinders. How much meat is he grinding?
It's kind of nice to see Howla and Nosek though play in the game. Right?
I thought so too.
Yeah. I thought Nosek was so underrated, man. I thought he did everything.
Yeah, good player.
Yep. I just sent you a picture that maybe you can figure out a way to include into this show.
All right, let's see. What if I just do this?
So they had, there you go. Who's that? Who are those two young bucks there?
That's David Perron. Who's the other one?
That's a goalie wearing a Wrangler's mask.
That's you.
That's you.
That's me.
You and DP.
That is 2007.
I thought it was a trick question, and you said, "Who are those two? Who are those two young bucks?" I'm like, "Well, one of them's you," but I thought there was another. I was trying to find a third face in there, and
no,
it was not.
He has some nice chops there, Mike.
I don't know about this yellow jersey though. Like that's terrible.
2007, man. Like sideburns, goatee. I had it going.
Yeah, those sideburns. Ooh, those sideburns. Yeah, look at that. Get up in there.
Those were money.
That is a nice Wrangler's helmet.
Yeah, it's got painted over.
It
Unfortunately,
did.
Oh, really?
It's gone.
Yeah, that's the only one I ever had that got painted over. Portland Pirates. Yeah.
David Perron told some fantastic stories on the. Again, I'll go back to the Agent Provocateur. By the way, that name. Ooh, boy. That's a lingerie shop, and that's like the name that they use for their podcast. But whatever, it's good podcast, good listen for Alan Walsh. But yeah, the David Perron episode's fantastic, as is the Max Pacioretty one. Whenever they have Golden Knights players, which they will not have anymore because they don't have anymore, because the Golden Knights hate Alan Walsh. But we'll get back to that another day. Okay, let's talk about the upcoming schedule. Next couple games.
There was a really good comment in this. Kiki Miller. Find this in our comments because I want to touch on this one super quick. They shut down their social media, made Panda take the Panda off his helmet from the local guy. Okay, I didn't know about anything.
I didn't know about that either.
I did. There was a local artist that he was told. Yeah.
His name is Juan Muniz. Yeah.
Cannot use that person?
I don't know what happened there. Maybe if Juan's listening, sometimes he is on some of these. If he can pop on.
I noticed this last season, and I have no idea because I never asked about it. I never knew if there was a mandate, anything, but the Golden Knights players did not use social media last season. And it wasn't until Robin had enough and tweeted the Panda getting out of the cage when the restrictions were lifted for the guys a little bit. Remember that?
Yep.
And then he started to use it again. And he was the NHL's most favorite follow the year before.
It was amazing.
And he didn't use it all season. The only time any player would tweet was for like a charity event or something like that.
If that, like, it was usually just like a retweet.
Because I had at one point I wanted to, grab all the tweets or Instagram posts from players, and it was like I couldn't get anything. And I was like, something's going on here.
List on the site. It used to be on the side of the site where we had a list of everyone, and I stopped.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, why? It's your brand. Like that's
I thought the brand was emojis.
It's tough for me to see though. Like, cause like you talk about, you want to be attached to players, you want to know their personality. You're essentially saying you don't trust your players because everybody else in this sporting world is using social media for their benefits.
Yeah, forget that, Mike. They're losing money. The league and the players are losing money because they don't know these players, and really the public doesn't care. So so these guys don't get endorsements. I mean, Alex Pietrangelo was on a national Honda commercial, but how many people across
I'm Alex Pietrangelo of the NHL.
Yeah. I mean, how many people really know of him?
Right. And so that's stuck in my craw big time. And I never asked because why did it bother? Like, obviously, they weren't allowed to use Twitter. That's what my assumption was until it finally got to the point where it was like, Panda didn't care anymore. That's what it looks like. And it's kind of the same thing as like, if nobody says anything, you're free to assume whatever you want, you know?
Well, we were told they were not allowed to use phones inside the locker room.
Well, that's true. That's NHL rule. You are not supposed to do that. Yeah. So
should I out people that have?
No, you're not supposed to be able to tweet publicly or do anything publicly from within a locker room. And that's, that did happen though at one point last 2 seasons ago or something. So it's all malleable, as they say, I guess.
That's a good word. It means bend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm smart. I know these words. Abby's been doing the crossword puzzles. I got Demi earlier. Yeah,
that's a good.
That was pretty good. I was impressed with myself.
Yeah.
By the way, what do you mean Italians are all slim? Maybe Italians, but American Italians.
Well, American, that's not the same. Like an American Italian is a completely different animal. Fantastic people. Do not get me wrong. Some of
they have gravy all over their shirt. You know, I mean,
but no, that just meant red sauce. There's even a divide amongst American Italians whether it's red sauce or Sunday sauce or gravy. It's all different things.
Don't call it.
My nana said gravy, so I'm going to go with gravy.
No.
Where and in your original, Jason, your original location, where are you from again?
I'm from Boston.
Yeah, it appears to be an East Coast thing. The Midwesterners
10 miles north. Yeah.
Some sort of Rhode Island, right?
Me? No, I went to school in Rhode Island.
Well, that's some sort of Rhode Island.
Oh, I see.
It's an island of road.
Yeah, it's close enough. You're not. Are you? What was your city? Where did you grow up? The city?
Reading, Massachusetts. And by the way, there's no grocery carts at all over the parking garage. They're nicely lined up. But in Reading, Massachusetts.
About that, did you see
You lived
that?
in the good part of town. I get it.
Someone sent us a shirt. I wish I could find the tweet. There was a shirt about that. It was fantastic. There's 4 games between now and the next episode of Goalie Interference, which is on the 22nd, which is not Christmas, so we'll be able to do it.
No,
because we almost fucked that up last time when we did it on Thanksgiving. Okay, New Jersey Devils tomorrow, New York Rangers the next day. First of all, which goalie plays each of those games?
Fantastic question. I think you're going to see Laurent Brossoit against the Devils.
Okay.
And then I think you're going to see Robin Leonard against the Rangers and then the Islanders. That's my guess.
And then they play Tampa at home after that. There's 8 points on the line. They've picked up a bundle recently, 6 in the last homestand, another 2 last night against Boston in a game that should have never been played. How many points in the next 8?
Well, they lose to the Rangers. It's a guarantee.
Guarantee.
By the way, we'll put a guarantee. It is a guarantee Robin Leonard will play in Long Island. We can guarantee that.
Yes.
So,
see, I was going to ask you.
Long Island. Don't say in Long Island. They throw rocks at you.
On Strong Island. We're going to Strong Island. He'll play.
I don't know about that part of it, but there's some bing bong situation I don't understand either.
I don't know. For the next 8 here, I think New Jersey has not impressed me lately. I think they roll New Jersey. I think they get a point from the Rangers. So I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 5-8 because I think they beat the Islanders too, and I do not see them coming off that road trip and beating Tampa at home.
Okay, so you got.
So I'm going to say 5-8. I think they get a point against the Rangers though.
All right.
I think it's a guarantee that they lose to the Rangers. As much as I would love to see them win, that team's going to run through walls for Gallant.
Doesn't mean they're going to beat the Golden Knights. If they don't have the puck, maybe they'll do what Boston did and run through the blue line. Well,
I would like to issue an apology
as an Italian American. I mean, we're just saying what's true. Like, sorry,
this is going to be the decisive moment. Christian B, my apologies, but we do need to know: is it gravy or is it sauce?
I thought you were going to ask for a height or weight, or the one time I asked for pictures that didn't go well for me.
Ken, this is a PG-13 show.
I know. Well, height and weight's that's not. I mean, you don't have to send it, Christian.
It's gravy. Listen, as a grandson to two Italian nanas who both call it gravy, it's gravy.
Gravy is brown.
Well, but see, here's Christian says sauce. And by the way, and Nicolette had a good point here. The tribute that the Blackhawks did and NBC Sports Chicago for Marc-Andre Fleury's 500th win, phenomenal, including his wife and kids, and just couldn't have been better. And he got the win again tonight. So really, really cool for Flower. Good pick up there, Nicolette. I enjoyed watching that as well.
Okay, I'll put you on the spot. Who's better, Fleury or Leonard? That's how we're ending the show. And we must answer the question. Go.
Right now, it's Fleury, the way he's played lately.
Moving forward, you're trying to win this Stanley Cup, Fleury or Leonard. Who should they have traded? If you were to be an agent and you had to put out a picture of a sword going through one of these players' backs, whose back would you put the sword through?
It's retrospective, man. We can't do that. We got to move forward. We can only compare what we're looking at right now. Not doing that. Nope.
All right, choose this. Perry Como, Bing Crosby, or Johnny Mathis Christmas. Which album are you? There you go. I'd go Perry Como first and then Mathis.
I don't know what any of that is.
You know what? I actually think the only album you need is the Bad Religion Christmas album.
Well, I don't know that one.
Like Santa or some sort of elf or something next week when we do this show 2 days before Christmas.
I think we should all wear antlers and ugly sweaters and make it festive. All the things that
do you have any AHL ugly sweater jerseys?
I never had one. That was kind of passe. It didn't come in until afterwards, but I did wear antlers on air in Vegas with the ugly sweater, and I made that one happen. And that was probably the pinnacle. So
that's why you're with us
not
now.
Fighting, and because there's no media in Vegas, and I am still mad at Max Pacioretty, I am making this show end with who is better to win a game. Game 7, Stanley Cup final. You must select a goalie, Robin Lehner or Marc-Andre Fleury. Who does Mike select?
Flower.
Oh, he did it. Good stuff. Good night, everyone. Thanks again to the Jimerson Law Firm for sponsoring Goalie Interference. Check out all of Mike's work on dailyfaceoff.com. Fantastic stuff. Pretty much daily, as the name implies, as it turns out. Over there, good stuff there, and I'm sure we have a bunch of stuff. We took a week off on the podcast because there was too many goddamn games. So there'll be another podcast at another day. Please don't cancel the season. Thank you. Goodbye.